I want to thank everyone who's joining us today to learn about the amazing world of bromeliads and tillandsias. And let me just give you a little feedback on how I got into this learning about this wonderful world of these unusual plants. I grew up in Dallas, and I moved to rural Mexico in 1987. And I had been a commercial real estate broker before I moved to Mexico. And whenever I got to Mexico, there was not a high demand for commercial real estate brokers who did not speak the language in rural Mexico. So did a lot of soul searching and pondering, and was trying to figure out what I could do in that neck of the woods. So I decided to start a business with my passion, and my passion was orchids. And in 1991, I finished my first 2 commercial shade houses, and I became the first commercial cut dendrobium orchid producer in Mexico, and did that for 20 years. And if you love orchids, lots of times you're gonna start learning about the other tropical plants that grow near orchids, and those would be bromeliads and tillandsias. So I actually started producing some bromeliads, and I had a commercial real estate company. And then I began a retail location, and did events also. And I stayed there for over 20 years, and had to leave unexpectedly in 2010. I found myself in a war zone down there. So I've been up in Dallas since 2010, and had to have some of my tropical friends here with me. And I have built a greenhouse behind my home. So still have some of my tropical plants. So let's talk about bromeliads and tillandsias. And if y'all have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask me at any point. I love dialogue while I'm talking about this fascinating topic. Anyway, the 2 most commonly known bromeliads and tillandsias. Okay, pineapple, y'all see this little teeny tiny pineapple? This is a miniature pineapple, but pineapples are part of the Bromeliaceae family. Here's one of the little ones that fell off one of my plants, but the big ones, they're one of the few terrestrial bromeliads. Most of the bromeliads are epiphytes, which mean they grow in trees and rocks and whatever, but there are a few terrestrial bromeliads and tillandsias, pineapple being one. And the most commonly known tillandsia is Spanish moss. Spanish moss is not a moss, it is a tillandsia. Anyways, just some fun facts about bromeliads and tillandsias. Tillandsias are also part of the Bromeliaceae family. So we're going to talk about the 5 cultural elements that will set you up for success with the bromeliads and tillandsias. And the first one is lighting. Most of the bromeliads grow up in the trees, and they use their roots to hold on to the tree limbs. And so they're getting dappled light up in the trees. So be sure to be careful with your bromeliads. They have a wide range of light needs. One of the few bromeliads that can handle full-on sun is the pineapple. But that's very rare that the bromeliad or tillandsia can handle full-on sun. Most of them they need dappled light. And I have found that the bromeliads that have little stickers on the leaves. I wish I could pass this plant around. Usually whenever I'm speaking, I take my plants with me and I pass them around and y'all can feel them. But the bromeliads that have the little spikes on the leaves, I have found that those can usually handle more sun than the ones that are real smooth and don't have any spikes on the leaves. Like this one is real smooth, and this one, those are the ones that generally speaking, need less light. So you need to play with the light needs. A lot of people have their plants inside. That's a great place to have your bromeliads. Just be sure that they're getting some kind of sun. If you put them on it depends. If it's a Guzmania that doesn't need very much sun, then those can go on a northern window. Or if you have some that, like a Neurogelia, that needs more light, those can even handle a southern or a western facing window, as long as it's not getting direct sun through the window. And if you don't want to have them inside all the time, then put them on your porch where they're getting some filtered light, or underneath a tree. I have a lot of them on my porch and also underneath trees. I even have some in hanging baskets, and I have them hanging from shepherd's hooks underneath my trees during the summer. And anyway, they just add a great dimension. There's this one, I've got this one on my porch. I have it on a shelf in my porch. It's just sitting in this container, and they're just so easy to decorate with. They're fun, and you can do all kinds of fun, creative things with them. Anyway, so that's the lighting needs. Just again, be careful. They can be easily burned. That's what you want to be the most careful about. Then the second cultural element with bromeliads is watering them. And most all the bromeliads have a little cup inside. There's a little vessel. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to. There's a water pouring out of the plant there. But anyway, they have a cup in the center where, when they're out in nature, that's where the plant collects its water, and that's how they feed themselves, or they water themselves. And we're going to talk about that process specifically in a little bit. But I have found if you have your bromeliads sitting inside and they don't have very much air circulation, watering them in the center of their cup, sometimes they can rot because there's not enough air circulation, and they don't perform well. So if my plants are inside, I recommend watering the soil, and that's a great way of taking care of them, and they won't rot that way. So just be careful if you don't have proper air circulation inside. Now, if your plants are outside, then of course go ahead and hose them down, or you can make sure that there's water inside that cup, that natural cup. The tillandsias, in watering them, that's an interesting topic. And you have probably noticed I have not said air plants. And a lot of people call tillandsias air plants. And I like to call them tillandsias, because whenever I call them air plants, there seems to be a source of confusion. Here's a great, nice nice sized Tillandsia or air plant. Anyway, whenever I have gone to plant shows with the what is the Greater Dallas-Fort Worth Bromeliad Society, people will come up to us and they'll say, oh, we just love our Tillandsias, but gosh, they just don't live very long for us. And then I'll start asking people, well, how do you take care of them? You know, tell me what you did. And so trying to figure out what went wrong. Anyway, when people will say, well, they're air plants, they just live off the air. No, they don't. They need some watering, and they need to be watered at least once a week. You can water them, and some of them need to be watered more. And I would say don't water them every day. Most of these they don't need watering that often. And if they're outside in the summer and it's hot, you know, maybe every other day, just give them a good, you know, hose them down. But if they're inside, I would say once or twice a week at the most. If you start seeing that your leaves are starting to curl in, or maybe a little wrinkled, start getting kind of looking like my face, a little wrinkled, then that you're not watering them enough. But also, if you miss them like that, that's not watering a bromeliad or tillandsia. That is adding humidity. If you're going to use a spray bottle to water your tillandsias, you want to soak them. You want to keep spraying them until the water is dripping off the leaves. And the tillandsias, you can spray them with a mister, heavily spray them with a mister to water them. You can put them in a bowl of water and let them soak for 5, 10, 15 minutes, even an hour if you want, not more than that. But you can let them soak. You can hose them down if they're outside. A lot of times people will attach them to pieces of wood or whatnot, and you can just hose them down. So just be sure to give them a good watering. And let's say this clump, you could take it over to the kitchen sink and just hold it underneath the faucet and let water run over it, and it's watered. So they're super easy to water. Let's move on to the third cultural element that will set you up for success, and that is fertilization. They need some fertilizer, but not very much. I would say I probably fertilize my bromeliads 2, maybe 3 times a year. Probably the same for my tillandsias. Now, a few years ago, the International Bromeliad Convention was in Houston, and I was so excited that it was so close and I could go. And whenever I was at the convention and, you know, let's say sitting at the table with some people talking about bromeliads, enjoying dinner, and a lot of the people said that they did not fertilize their bromeliads at all. And I respect that. I understand it. It's so funny whenever you get different plant producers or growers together. They all, like, you know, if you get your orchid growers together, they have one, you know, each person will have their own special way of doing something. And, you know, the cactus people will have their own special way of doing things. And I respect, as I just said, that there are a lot of people who don't fertilize their bromeliads. I do. I fertilize them I am a big advocate of organic fertilizers. The reason being is that you're feeding the soil, which then, or the potting medium, which then feeds the plant. And you want to make sure that the potting medium just gets better and better with time. And the organics will do that. Where synthetic fertilizers, they add a lot of salts to the potting medium, and that's just not good. And it's not healthy for your plants long term. So I'd like to fertilize with an organic, evenly balanced liquid fertilizer. And if the instructions say 1 teaspoon per gallon of water, I would use 1/4 to one half of a teaspoon per gallon. So dilute whatever it says. And whenever I do fertilize, I usually put it down in the potting medium. I don't put it in the cup of the plant unless it's a foliar fertilizer, which the foliar fertilizers are great. And I don't know if y'all can tell in this spray bottle, it's not clear because I have a foliar fertilizer in there. And that's what I will use sometimes whenever I'm spraying my bromeliads and tillandsias. So a good foliar fertilizer works too, but I just feel, I don't know, I like to eat sometimes, and I kind of feel like it's cruel and unusual punishment if you don't feed your plants sometime. So that is about how to fertilize. And again, it's not very often. And even if you just do it once a year, that's good. These are easy plants to take care of. They really are. So, okay, that was the third cultural element. Humidity is the fourth cultural element. And these plants, they're tropical. They love some humidity. Obviously, in my greenhouse, they get lots of humidity. On my Dallas is pretty humid. So on my back porch, they'll get lots of humidity. If you have them inside your house, obviously, if you have them in a bathroom window, that's terrific. I've had a lot. In fact, during the winter, whenever my greenhouse gets really full, if I'm running out of room, I'll line up some of my bromeliads. In fact, this is one of them that I'll put in my bathroom window. This is called a cryptanthus, and I'll just line up my bathroom window with my tillandsias, and they love spending the winter in my bathroom. Also, if you can maybe put them by a kitchen sink, that will get a lot of humidity that way. Another trick that you can have is if you have a dish and have some, let's say those clear marbles or whatnot, and you put the tillandsia or the bromeliad on those marbles. Now, don't let the plant touch the water underneath, but have it nestled in the marbles and have water underneath. And as long as the tillandsia or bromelia is not touching the water, it will love it. You will still need to water it. Give it extra watering, but that will give it some good humidity. So just try to give them some humidity. I mean, you don't have to worry about, don't feel as though you have to spray them every day or give them humidity every day, but they don't like dry conditions for the long term. I have never raised bromeliads or tillandsias in the desert, so I don't know what it's like making sure that they get humidity in the desert, but I would think that would be more of an issue than what I've experienced living in the tropics and also in Dallas. Okay, the fifth and final cultural element that will set you up for success with the bromeliads and tillandsias is air circulation. And I include this in just about every topic I discuss about plants. I don't know why people don't talk about air circulation more often. I think it's critical. When you walk into a commercial greenhouse, you walk through that door and your hair is going to get blown back because there is so much air circulation in the greenhouse. Or like today, a cold front just came through Dallas and it is super windy and blustery outside. Plants need air circulation. When they're out in nature, they're going to have air circulation. And I have found that they thrive. They just are healthier. They don't have as many pests when there's a lot of air circulation. I do commercial installations in office buildings and homes and whatnot. And those places, the plants are inside all the time. And lots of times they'll get scale or mealybugs on them. And I don't like to use chemicals on my plants. So I'll take them out of the commercial installation, and I have a crepe myrtle in my backyard, and that's my plant hospital. And I put the plants, any sick plants, I'll put it in the plant hospital underneath the crepe myrtle, where they'll get they get the sprinkler system goes off in that area, so they get watered every once in a while through the sprinkler system. I hand water over there. They're getting dappled shade. The insects come around. The beneficial insects will come around and eat the insects off the bromeliads that are, if they have mealy bugs, and the wind is whipping around. 100% of the, no, that's exaggeration. 95% of the time, when 2 months later, my plants are healthy. Nature has taken care of them. Maybe the geckos come and eat some of the insects, but it's air circulation and good growing conditions. I mean, air circulation to me is a great component of providing plants with a healthy growing environment. So those are the 5 cultural elements with the bromeliads and tillandsias. And now I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of these fun plants. I want to show you these. These are called cryptanthus. In fact, there's the Cryptanthus Society also, but the Cryptanthus are part of the Bromeliaceae family also. And these are one of the few terrestrial bromeliads. Aren't they fabulous? I mean, look at the colors. They come in amazing colors. This one kind of looks like a feather. Just love them. These are native of the jungle floor in Brazil, and they really like to be moist. In fact, this one dripping some water on my desk right now, but I would say these are one of the few bromeliads that you want to keep their potting medium wet. In fact, I don't know how other people raise their cryptanthus, but I even have these sitting in a dish, and I have them sitting in water, not all the time, but whenever I'm watering them, I have them in large dishes, and I'll have maybe 10 of them in one of those large dishes, and I'll put maybe about an inch of water in there, and they might be sitting in the water for a day or so until they soak up all the water. And I do that a couple of times a week. But the cryptanthus, they are fabulous, easy plants to deal with. I think this is an exciting, fun thing to do with the Tillandsias. I hang them in my greenhouse. Now this is one of my unusual collection plants. So I have the label on it. That's not always true. So I have the wire, and I just hang them up. Even the little ones, I can hang them up. You'll see some extra wire. I took some of the other plants off, but I'll just string them up, and I'll hold on. Let me show you. I do it like this, and I can have, 3 or 4 different Tillandsias hanging from the same wire. But that's a really fun, easy way to take care of them. You can even have some of them hanging from trees and whatnot. Now, you can't, these plants do not like cold conditions. I think they always say they don't like any temperatures below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. You can push that. I mean, I bet some of mine have been exposed to 38 degrees. And if I were to say, I bet maybe even 35, but try not to let them get too cold. They are tropical plants, and they do not want to be left outside during cold temperatures. If they are left outside and it gets below freezing, you're probably gonna have a dead plant the next morning. So anyway, that's a fun thing, an interesting way to display your Tillandsias. This is one of the little pineapples, and it has gotten matured. You see how it's nice and yellow. It's not, this one here still has not finished opening. Do you see how this one is starting to mature and it's still greener, and the little plant up at the top, it still has not fully opened. It will look like this in a few weeks. So anyway, this one has fallen off the stalk. So it's now time to plant it. So I'll plant the whole thing in potting medium, and I'll put the pineapple into the potting medium, and I just feel as though that gives it some extra food and nutrients. And I put the potting medium almost up to where the green starts. And that's how you get a new plant. The bromeliads and tillandsias, unless they are terrestrial, like the cryptanthus and the bromeliad and the pineapple, they do not like they don't plant them in soil. Either have them, you can, as I showed you here, you can just even have it on, set it in a vase if you want. Or, one of my favorite things is to have them in a glass bowl that is a pedestal style glass bowl. And then I'll put a thin layer, maybe about that many of the clear marbles, and then just nestle the bromeliad into that pedestal glass dish. And that's another beautiful, beautiful presentation of the Tillandsias, and also bromeliads, but do not put them in potting soil. Their roots like a lot of air circulation. I was telling you that the Tillandsias and bromeliads mostly use their roots for stabilizing. They get a little bit of their food and nutrients through their roots, but not a whole lot. They get most of them through their leaves, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So if you use a very light mixture, and if you were to go to a Bromeliad Society meeting, everyone you would speak to would probably have a different formula that they use for their bromeliads. In fact, I have never found bromeliad potting medium already made up. Maybe they have it in Florida or Hawaii where they have a lot of bromeliads, but in Dallas, I've never seen it, and they certainly did not have it in Mexico where I live. So my formula is 1/3 peat moss, 1/3 vermiculite or perlite, and 1/3 orchid bark. And I'll just get that mix, and it'll change a little bit over time, but that's my potting medium. There's these little clay pebbles, and I don't even know if I've ever known what the name of these are, but they use them for aquaponics, and sometimes they're a light gray and sometimes they're a dark gray, and I'll put those in my potting medium also, especially the plants, the bigger plants. Now, I would not do that for the cryptanthus, but these can go in soil since they are terrestrial. But the tougher, hardier plants like the Neorigelias, they can handle even more air circulation. So you do not want the soil to compact against the roots of the plant, because it will kill it. So be careful about soil. So I keep talking about how these Tillandsias and bromeliads get their food and nutrients. So what's really cool about these plants, and this is what makes Tillandsias and bromeliads so unique, they get their food and nutrients through trichomes. And trichomes are like little scales on the leaves of these plants. Now, this plant, you can see it kind of has a gray tone to it. That means it has lots and lots and lots of trichomes on it. Now, this one, do you see in comparison how green it is? This one doesn't have as many trichomes, but it still has trichomes. Anyway, those trichomes are like dry sponges all over the plant, And then whenever they're out in nature, and let's say it rains or it mists or some organic debris falls on it, maybe some leaves or maybe just dust, or a bird flies over and goes poo on it, whatever the case may be, that the water and the organic debris falls on the leaves, and they're able to absorb that moisture and disperse it through the plant. And that's how they feed themselves. So it's really fascinating how they feed themselves. So even if they do, you do have some plants in a potting medium, especially the bromeliads, because they get so large, you never need a super large pot. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but this is a fairly large plant, but not a super big pot. You never have, they really don't need to be in large pots. So another unique feature of bromeliads, and this, when I'm going to tell you this, it's going to probably make you a little sad. But here is the mother plant. So this plant have bloomed, I think it started blooming this spring, and it's just now starting to fade. I don't know if y'all can tell, but it's not a vibrant pink like it was. So this one probably bloomed for about 6 months. I've had some that have bloomed maybe even almost a year, but the mother plant is starting to finish, and it has put out one pup, just one baby here. This mother plant, do you see how the leaves are starting to turn yellow here? This mother plant is going to die, but it will the bromeliads will always put out pups. You never know if it'll be 1 pup, 2 pups, 6 pups. It really depends. This one, I don't know if you can, let me see if you can see in here. Well, I don't think you can see specifically, but the mother plant was here on this one, and it put out 2 pups. So this is those 2 plants are starting to change colors, and they'll be, when they mature, they'll be a nice bright color. This one, look at this color. It is, I wish you could really see it, but it's this bright magenta, it's a bright red. It's just a stunning colored plant. So the mother plant will die. But you never know if it's immediate with the Tillandsia here. This one, I wish I could pass it around. This plant always gets passed around, but right here, there are 4 generations of plants, and this one the mother plants have not died yet, but there's 1 generation here, then there's another one, and then here's another one, and then here's this one. Look how long this spike is. And this one has been blooming for the past few months, but just a fabulous, fabulous plant. Really enjoy those Tillandsias. Oh, and I wanted to show y'all this one also. And some of these Tillandsias and bromeliads can be enormous. This is still not one of my biggest ones, but this one's anyway, this one blooms every year, just a real faithful workhorse of a bromeliad. And anyway, just this one is quite large, but I have some larger ones, but I did not, those, unless you come to my greenhouse, you're not going to see those because they're kind of too heavy to move them around. Most of them put out the pups like I was showing, but there's some of them that put out the stolons that just start growing all different directions. This is one of the ones that I'll put some hooks on them, and when they get really large and there's really all the plants are starting to drape over the pot, those are some of the ones that I'll hang from shepherd's hooks underneath my trees during the summer. So those are great fun. I think that's almost everything that I wanted to tell y'all about. I have one more thing I want to say about the trichomes, but this might be a good time if y'all be thinking about any questions. I don't know if you can maybe unmute in just a moment and I can answer some of your questions, but what I did want to tell you about the trichomes, you know, I was telling you how this plant has so many more trichomes than this one because, you know, you see that gray. In fact, you see where some of the trichomes have even gotten scraped off right there. Anyway, when you see a bromeliad or tillandsia with this kind of coloring, and you know, oh my gosh, it's just so many trichomes, this means that it lives in a more arid area than this one that doesn't have as many trichomes. So whenever it does rain, this plant needs to soak up as much water and moisture as possible, where this one is like, yeah, I don't need as many trichomes because I live in an area where it rains a whole lot and I don't have to worry that much about moisture. So interesting fun fact about those. In fact, this is called Tillandsia ionantha, and these are a native of Mexico. I used to see these a lot whenever I was living in Mexico, and this is full grown. So now they'll clump, and if the Tillandsia ionantha, if you hang them upside down, that will promote clumping. And sometimes you'll just, I mean, I've seen a complete and total spheres of these, and they're just the cutest little things, and they'll put out little red flowers, and they're fun plants. So, okay, do y'all have any questions?
No, I don't think there's any questions. I think that was super informative, Gina.
Good. I think we about covered everything about bromeliads and tillandsias that I can think to tell y'all.